Hey there, my name is Arjun and I'm one of the creators of Empirical. Empirical is an open source test framework for LLM developers. We want you to feel super productive when it comes to comparing different LLMs, evaluating different scenarios, and which is why we focused on speed as a key aspect of the product. Let me show you how it works. So I'm going to jump into VS Code and I'm going to use this empty directory as our playground for the demo. To kick things off, I'm going to use the CLI, the Empirical CLI, and run the init command. Now, this command will install Empirical if you don't have it already. And once it's installed, it will actually set up a JSON file for you. And let's see what this file has. So the Empirical JSON file is a declarative configuration for the test, right? So it describes the test that we want to do. There are three aspects to the configuration: runs, dataset, and scorers. Let's take a look at them one by one. So runs describes the test, the models that we want to test. And here I'm testing, 3.5 Turbo and 4 Turbo preview from OpenAI on a simple entity extraction task, right? So I'm actually prompting the LLM saying that you will extract the name, age, and location from a message and respond with a JSON object, and we're passing the user message with this placeholder. Now, let's say I want to actually do a comparison between 3.5 Turbo and the new Llama 3. So I'm going to switch the provider to Fireworks, which is the inference provider that I'm going to use under the hood. And I'm just going to put in the name of the model that's hosted by Fireworks, which is the 8 billion parameter Llama 3 model. Now, we'll pass the same prompt in both of these and see how it goes. Next, let's jump into the dataset. So the dataset refers to different samples that we want to actually run against these models, right? In this case, I have 2 user messages that we will pass and run on the models that we've described above. But 2 is not enough. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to just go back to my browser where I have a spreadsheet that has about 30 different samples of user messages across different languages. And we sort of curated the expected name and age out of these messages. Let's actually use this as our input file. So I'm going to go back into my editor and just swap this out with a path to this particular spreadsheet. Empirical will figure out how to sort of pull in the samples from the spreadsheet under the hood. And then lastly, I have scorers. Now, Empirical has some built-in scorers, and we've used one here, which is called JSON syntax. This will basically ensure that the output that's coming out of the LLM is valid JSON, which is what we had actually asked the LLM to do. But let's say I want to add another scorer here that checks for the contents of the JSON. So I'm just going to add another scoring function, and we'll name this JSON contents. We'll actually set the type as a PyScript, which is a feature of LLM. You can actually pass a custom Python function, and it will use that to score your output. And let's actually point to a file called match.py, which is where we'll define this particular function. So now I'm going to just open a new file. Let's actually save this as match.py, and I'm just going to use my clipboard here to copy a sample function that I had written just a while ago. Now let's see what this function does. It has it has a few steps. First, it actually parses and tries to parse the JSON from the output. Now this will throw an exception if the output is not a valid JSON, and that's fine. Empirical will handle it. And then we are actually just comparing the name from the parsed output against our inputs, age against our inputs, and if it all passes, we just say score is 1. Things work out, and we're good to go. So this describes the test and our scenario that we want to test for. Once I have that ready, I can go back to my terminal and using the CLI again, use the run command to actually run a test. Now, when I do the run command, Empirical will pick up the JSON file, it will actually pick up the samples, it will run the models under the hood, and it will handle things like rate limiting and batching so that it runs pretty quickly, and it'll give you a summary of results in your terminal window. So you will see that GPT 3.5 and Llama generated all the outputs, which is great, but when it comes to scores, Llama did not pass any of them, even though it was pretty good when it comes to the latency relative to GPT 3.5. Now let's see if we can actually improve scores here for Llama 3 and make it work better. To do this, I'm going to actually use the UI command, which will actually open up results inside my browser. So this opens up the Empirical UI, which also looks a bit like a spreadsheet. And on the left here, you can see all the samples that we passed on Empirical. So we have the user messages and other properties that were part of our spreadsheet. On the right here, you can see responses from 3.5 Turbo and Llama 8 billion. Now here we'll see the results again. Llama 3 actually has it fails on JSON syntax, and we can see that that's the case because it tends to sort of explain itself and just not return the JSON object. So let's actually see if we can fix that. If I hit the show config button here, it will show me the prompt that was passed to Llama 3. Let's try a different prompt, a small tweak on the prompt, and ask Llama 3 to just return the JSON object and nothing else. Now, when I hit the run button here, I'll see a new column show up in the same UI. Now, this UI is fetching new results, and I can see that the new results from Llama 3 are actually much better, right? They are 97% on JSON syntax, 23% on JSON contents, right? We're making progress, and the latency is actually slightly lower, which means that it is a viable competitor to 3.5. As we can see here, in this case, age seems to have been returned as a string as compared to a number, and that's why the age is actually failing, because we expect it to be a number. Now scanning through these can be a bit painful, so I can actually click on the show summary here, which will actually summarize these scores for me. So if I go into the messages pane, it'll actually show me that the common message that our JSON content scorer is throwing is that the age does not match. And that's the case in 19 of the scenarios, right? Which is probably the main reason why the score is low. We can actually make a change to our prompt again, come to maybe specify the fact that age is expected to be a number, and then rerun it in the same UI and get very fast feedback loops on new prompts as we are exploring this particular model. So this gives you a quick high-level overview of what Empirical can do. You can describe your tests as a JSON file. You can use the CLI to run the test and then see results in your browser and actually use an interactive playground-like experience in the browser to make sure that the model that you're using works really well for the scenarios that matter for your application. I'll encourage you to check out Empirical. It is open source. Give it a go, and drop us any issues or join our Discord if you have any feedback for us. Thank you.